Hi, boys and girls. Thank you for your incredible focus during our first 5 area and perimeter lessons. Today, I get to teach you our 6th lesson. By now, you know that it's very important to have a pencil, scratch paper, and your math packet so that you can participate in this lesson with me and take notes. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to do 2 things. You will be able to use key details to determine whether a word problem is an area or perimeter problem. You'll also be able to solve area and perimeter word problems. 3rd graders, we will begin by reviewing the wonderful knowledge that you already have. You have become quite skilled at determining the area and perimeter of rectangles. Would you please pause this video and draw the rectangle on my screen and determine the area and perimeter of this rectangle, just like we did yesterday. 3rd graders, you know that to determine the area of a rectangle, you very carefully multiply the length times the width. And that tells you the total space covered by the rectangle. You know that your equation to determine the area of a rectangle is length times width. And that tells you the total space covered by the rectangle. Boys and girls, were you able to determine that the area of this rectangle was 20 square feet? Fantastic! You found the number of square units that fit inside this rectangle, and 20 square feet fit inside. That's the total space covered. We also were able to determine the perimeter. To determine the perimeter, you carefully add all of the side lengths together, because we know that the perimeter is the total distance around the shape. That's why only the outside edges are highlighted, because it's only the distance around the outside edges of the shape. And you know to determine perimeter, you carefully add these side lengths together. Boys and girls, examine the area and perimeter. Would you please think about my question? How are the areas and perimeters of these rectangles different? Pause the video and be ready to answer that question. You're right, they're different because the area refers to all of the space covered by the rectangle. That's why all of this area is shaded in yellow. I like to think of area as space covered, the total amount of space taken up by an object. But you'll notice that the perimeter is different because the perimeter only accounts for the outside edges of the rectangle. That's why the outside is highlighted in yellow. Remember that string trick I taught you? You think of the yellow line as a string, and the perimeter would be the total length of the string because it's all of the side lengths put together. It's just the outside of a shape. So, all of your wonderful learning has prepared you for our lesson today. Today, we are going to read word problems and determine whether they're area or perimeter word problems using key details. So, boys and girls, our new learning today is perimeter word problems and area word problems. Let's start with perimeter. So, perimeter word problems involve finding the total distance around the outside edge of an object or shape. You already know that to determine the perimeter of a shape, you add all of the side lengths very carefully. So today, I'm going to talk to you about some key details that tell you right away that a problem is a perimeter problem if they're used in a word problem. So read this with me, 3rd graders. Nazar is roping off an area to play football in his backyard. The field needs to be 10 feet by 4 feet. How much rope will he need to place around the field? So I know that this is a perimeter problem because Nazar is only putting the rope around the outside edges of the field. He's not trying to figure out the total amount of space covered. He's only putting the rope around the field. The word around tells me that he's putting it around a space. So I know perimeter word problems have to do with just finding the total distance around an object. So last time we talked about some perimeter scenarios. So a perimeter scenario would be putting fencing around a garden, or putting a border around a wall or a picture, or putting a fence around a pool, or even putting a brick border around a garden, or putting a border around a path. Can you guys think of any other perimeter scenarios from yesterday? Yes, you could draw a border just on the outside edge of a picture. We could talk about the frame we used to put around a window. Great memory. Our other new learning is area word problems. Well, you have quite a bit of background on area word problems from our multiplication unit, but let's review. Area word problems represent the total amount of space covering the square units in a rectangular shape. How do you find area? Say it out loud. Yes, you multiply the length times the width of a rectangle. Here is my word problem example. Lachey's blanket is 4 feet wide by 8 feet long. How many square feet is Lachey's blanket? I knew that this was an area problem right away because it asked me the total number of square feet in Lachey's blanket. It didn't just refer to the edge or the border of Shay's blanket. It asked for the total square feet of the entire blanket. Remember, area is always measured in square units. The total square units tells us the total number of squares needed to cover the shape completely. Wonderful. We also learned about area scenarios yesterday. Can you think of any other times in real life where you'd need to find the total space covered by an object? Pause the video and think of some real life area scenarios. Fantastic. Maybe you need to find the area of a table so you can determine how big of a tablecloth you need to buy. You could determine the area of a wall so that you know how big of a picture you could hang up. Or you could determine the area of a room so you can figure out how much carpet you would need to cover the room. You could find the area of a sandbox to determine how much space would need to be covered by sand. You could determine the area of a garden to figure out how much soil you need. What else did you come up with? Okay, third graders. So we're going to use keywords or key details today to determine whether or not a problem is an area or perimeter problem. We know that area and perimeter are different because perimeter problems are only asking for us to account for the outside edge around a shape, whereas area refers to the total space covered by a shape. So keywords that tell us a problem is perimeter are long, wide, different units of measure, around, fencing, frame, trim, border, outside, distance around, or edge. All of these words have one thing in common. They all refer to the outside edge of a shape, or the distance around a shape, or the distance on the outside of a shape. Fantastic. Area words have some similarities and some differences. So you'll notice area also has long and wide as keywords and the same units. But it also has different keywords such as area, cover, square units, total distance, surface, or inside. So I know that area key details are asking us to consider only the space covered on the inside of the shape or all of the space covered by the shape. Fantastic. So yesterday we talked about why units are common keywords for both problem types, why length and width and these different units are common keywords. Boys and girls, what do you remember? Why are length and width and square feet, centimeters, inches, miles, and yards, why are they common keywords? Pause the video. Exactly, because to determine area and perimeter, you need to know the side lengths, and length and width refer to the side lengths of the rectangle. So those words are used often in area and perimeter word problems, but it's so important to carefully read the whole problem and the context to determine whether you're asked to find the total distance around a shape or perimeter, or the total space covered, which is area. This is going to be incredibly helpful for us today. Boys and girls, this vocabulary sheet is actually included in this lesson, so make sure you pull it up or open to this page in your packet. This is our determining area or perimeter thinking guide. Boys and girls, when I read a problem and I'm trying to determine whether or not it's an area problem or a perimeter problem, I ask myself these questions, and this helps me be really successful in determining the problem type and solving the problem. So you ask yourself first, well, is this a perimeter problem? Does this question ask me only to consider the outside edges, sides, or border of an object or shape? If the question's only asking you to consider the outside edges, then it's a perimeter problem. And so you know to solve perimeter problems, you carefully add the side lengths. But if the question asks you to determine the total amount of space covered or the material needed to cover a space, it's an area problem. And you know to solve area, you multiply the length times the width. So have this out because this is going to be very handy in helping you identify the problem type today. I know I have mine out. You guys are going to sort with me really quickly, and then we are going to actually solve area and perimeter problems together. Let's read this together. So it says, Max is roping off an area to practice soccer in his backyard. The field needs to be 12 feet by 8 feet. How much rope will he need to fit around his field? Boys and girls, I know right away that this is a perimeter problem. And the reason why it's a perimeter problem is because it's only referring to the rope that he needs to fit around his field, not the total space of the field, just the amount of rope he will need to fit around his field. So I know it's a perimeter problem. Let's do another one together. The Moores are putting new hardwood floors in their living room. If it is 10 feet long and 9 feet wide, how many square feet of hardwood will they need? So I'm going to look at my thinking guide. Okay, does it only ask about the outside edges of our living room? No, it asks for all of the square feet of hardwood we will need. I also know that area is measured in square feet. And so when it says how many square feet of hardwood will they need to cover our entire living room, well, I know right away it's area because it's asking about the total number of square feet, not just the edge of our living room. Let's do one more together. Ayana has baked a cake for Mother's Day and wants to place a ribbon around the outside edges of the cake. If the cake is 5 inches wide and 10 inches long, how much ribbon will she need? Pause the video, reread the question, and tell me, is it an area problem or perimeter? If you need any support with this, please get out your Determining Area and Perimeter thinking guide to help you. You're right. Did you determine that it was a perimeter problem? Because it asks If the cake is 5 inches wide and 10 inches long, how much ribbon will she need to put around the outside edges of the cake? She's not covering the entire cake in ribbon, only the outside edges. So I know it's a perimeter problem. Okay, I'll read this to you and tell me which column it would go into. Seth's backyard is 9 feet long and 8 feet wide. What is the total amount of space in Seth's backyard? Tell me where it would go and why. Yes, it's an area problem because it says the total amount of space. So I can always look at my pictures. Is it talking about the total space or just the outside edges of his yard? Yes, it's asking the total amount of space in his backyard. So I know it's area. Oh, please make sure you have your scratch paper so that you can solve this with me. Let's read it together. Izzy is sewing a sparkly inch border on the edge of her tablecloth. The tablecloth is 9 feet long and 8 feet wide. How long of a roll of sparkly inch border will Izzy need to purchase? Let's read again and let's highlight any key words that tell us whether this is talking only about the edge of her tablecloth or all of the area of her tablecloth. Okay, Izzy is sewing a sparkly inch border on the edge of her tablecloth. There were some definite key details in here that told me the problem type. Well, I know that a border refers to something that only goes on the edge of an object. Oh, and it has the word edge of her tablecloth. The tablecloth is 9 feet long and 8 feet wide. How long of a roll of sparkly inch border will Izzy need to purchase? So boys and girls, I'm going to look at my thinking guide. Does the question ask me only to consider the outside edges, sides, or border of an object in shape? Yes, it only asked for the amount of border Izzy will need for her tablecloth. So I know right away it's a perimeter problem. And I can look at my thinking guide. Yes, this is just like the border of her tablecloth. It only goes on the outside. Fantastic. Well, I highlighted the keywords that helped me with that. The keywords were border and edge because I know that that's referring just to the outside of the shape or the perimeter. Awesome. So here's her tablecloth and I know that I need to find the perimeter. So to find the perimeter, I have to add each side length. Please draw the tablecloth and find the perimeter by carefully adding each side length using what you know about multiple add-ins from our review lesson. Did you find the perimeter? Yes, you had to add 9 plus 8 plus 9 plus 8. So you know the perimeter of Izzy's tablecloth is 34 feet. Now I have to answer the question in a complete sentence. How long of a roll of sparkly inch border will Izzy need to purchase? I know I need to restate and say, Izzy will need 34 feet of sparkly inch border. Yes, that was a perimeter problem. Let's do another one together, third graders. I am so impressed with your listening. Let me grab my highlighter again. Ooh, this is about Lucy. Lucy has a rectangular rose garden that measures 8 meters by 7 meters that she would like to fertilize. How much space will she need to cover with fertilizer? Okay, let's read through again and keep our thinking guide in mind. Is it asking me to just think of the edges of her garden or the total space covered by her garden? Lucy has a rectangular rose garden that measures 8 meters by 7 meters that she would like to fertilize. How much space will she need to cover? Oh my goodness. So this problem isn't just referring to the outside edges of Lucy's garden. It's referring to all of the space that will need to be covered with fertilizer. So I know it's not perimeter because it does not ask me to only consider the edges of her garden. It's asking me to determine the total space covered, so I know it's an area problem. Pause the video And remember the key words that told you this was an area problem. Yes, space and cover tells me that they're trying to determine the total area. Okay, you know how to find area. You multiply the length times the width. Would you please find the area of Lucy's garden and answer the question in a complete sentence out loud? Fantastic. Yes, your equation is 8 meters times 7 meters, and I hope that you said that equals 56 square meters. And what was your complete sentence? How much space will she need to cover with fertilizer? Lucy will need to cover 56 square meters with fertilizer. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Okay, let's do one more together, and then I want you to show what you know, third graders. Let me grab my highlighter again. Let's read this together. Read with your loud and proud voice, please. Sam and her grandma are putting a white picket fence around the outside edge of their garden bed. If the garden bed is a square with side lengths of 5 feet, how many feet of fencing will they need? Pause the video and you guys, please find any key details that tell you the problem type. Were you guys able to determine that the word fence, well, I know fences go around yards or they go around objects, so I think that it's perimeter, but I'm going to keep reading to make sure because I know I have to read the whole question. Around, ooh, I know that's a perimeter word because perimeter asks me only to consider the outside edges, sides, or border. Ooh, oh my goodness, there's even more. Outside and edge and fencing. There are so many key details that tell me it's perimeter because the question does only ask me to consider the fence that goes around the outside edge of the garden, not the total space taken up by the garden like the previous question. So what were all the key words? Around, outside, edge, and fence. Fantastic. I have a challenge for you. Would you please draw this garden bed on your paper and determine the perimeter of this garden bed by carefully adding all of the side lengths of this square? And you guys know by now that if one side is 5 feet, so are the remaining sides. So write and label your equation and write your answer in a complete sentence. Did you guys know your equation should be 5 plus 5 feet plus 5 feet plus 5 feet? Fantastic. And so you know the total distance around her garden bed is 20 feet. That's the total of all of the side lengths added together. So the fence will have to be 20 feet. Awesome listening, rock stars. Okay, we'll do one more, and I'm going to let you do most of this by yourself, and then you get to work on your assignment for the day. Let's read it together. A piece of plywood was cut, so it is 8 feet by 4 feet. What is the total surface area of this plywood? Pause the video, read it again, and tell me the problem type. Hint, there is a huge key detail. What is it? Grab my highlighter out. Okay, so the total surface area tells you that you're not just considering the outside edges of the plywood. They want to know the total surface area. So what type of problem is it? Yes, area. The key words, well, there was a huge one. It basically told you. It asked for the surface area of the plywood. Pause the video, write your equation to determine the total surface area of the plywood, and write your answer in a complete sentence on your scratch paper. Yes, your equation would be 8 feet times 4 feet, which tells me that the surface area of the plywood is 32 square feet. So your complete sentence would be, well, you have to answer the exact question. Let's see what it would be. The surface area of this piece of plywood is 32 square feet. Boys and girls, here is your assignment for today on Google Classroom. You are going to read the problem and determine the problem type, if it's perimeter or area. And then just like we did in class today, you're going to write down the keywords that told you the problem type and your equation. You will also write your answer. Your task today is just like what we just did together on this video. The first problem has been completed for you to help support you. I expect you to take your time. I expect you to use your thinking guide to help you determine the problem type and to carefully determine the areas and perimeters of these rectangles. I am so proud of your listening today, and I can't wait to see your work. Thank you.